back on the fencing. This is phase 2. We've got the second 200 metre stretch to do, and I'm going to give them a hand today. Plus I've started getting the insulators on the post that end. Let me give you a quick look at how I did that last night, and then we'll get stuck in. So this evening I need to do a little bit of prep work before Tom comes back to finish off the fencing in the secret meadow. And also we need to get this high tensile electric fitted, and I've now got all the bits to do that. Oh, I think we found a good technique at least. I'll show you how I'm doing it. So in an aim not to need a tape measure at all, I'm using one of these as a spacer horizontally, butted down onto that staple. Top one goes on top of that, and then that's being screwed in. That's quite a nice, pleasant evening task. I've now done those 200 metres. We'll do the other 200 metres tomorrow once I've got something to measure up from. Can I ask you annoying questions whilst you do it? So, when you're tying it off like that,
yeah,
what's the benefit of that over knots or vice versa? Obviously that's quicker.
This is quicker and looks tidier, I think.
Yeah.
And knots hurt your fingers.
So the knots are literally when they sit in the competition stuff. That's just
yeah. This is like a New Zealand thing.
Yeah.
Literally a gripple up inside there.
Yeah.
Just grabs the wire.
On one side, on a right angle. And your argument for going with the box strainer over an angle? What's the?
Same stupid, but there's no digging.
Yeah.
Just always done them.
They're quite quick and simple, really, aren't
yeah.
they?
And nothing's as strong as a triangle, I don't think.
No.
As long as, I think if that length is longer than that length,
yeah,
it's going to work. Yeah, this is just a newer thing again.
Yeah.
This is New Zealand again, look.
I think we're anchored in down there. What they're going to do now is they've got this 100 metre stretch coming to here. They're going to join on the next 100 metres. These are 100 metre rolls. And then strain the whole thing. So literally just clamp the wire, it's not...
It's sort of like, it's shaped, Tim, so it like pinches it in there. So there's like a bar
in the actual...
this side and then 2 bars the other side, so...
Oh, it puts a little kink in it.
Yeah, yeah. That's it, a little kink and it just enough to bind on it, I suppose.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
Oh, so that's walking along.
Yeah, then we'll put one on the bottom now.
Yeah.
And just walk up that chain, one link at a time.
You reckon you could get 2 metres out of that?
It'd be close.
Drain it, yeah.
Close.
It's a lot, you know, over 200, there's like a fair
There's a bit bunched up in there.
lot there, yeah. We might be lucky. Find out in a minute.
So Rob's just gone ahead there to make sure it's not catching, because obviously if it catches on something, like it was caught on a root down here. Of course it was my smart idea to go with barbed on the bottom. That was more to stop the pigs, but it means that it's going to catch down here as Tom's straining at the other end. Like that. How short is it? Oh, close.
Yeah, it's so close.
Oh yeah, by the time you've got to go all the way around.
That's it. You've got to get round that 15 7 inch post, haven't we? So.
So that's the bonus bit that we needed.
We wouldn't have. Normally you'd be able to put it a bit further, but we wouldn't have got what we wanted.
There. Quick change of camera. Can't bring myself to go all the way back up for a battery, so I'm just going to show you what they're doing on the last stretch. They've done all the fencing, all the netting is in. What isn't in yet is the electric, and also either end. Either end we're closing into the brook, or finishing off into the brook, so just going to bang some posts in by hand just to kind of finish that, and then the same the other end, and then we just got to get the plain wire strained out, which is going to be kind of a high tensile normal plain wire that you might use on the bottom of the fence or anywhere else on the fence, but we're going to electrify it because that's going to be our kind of permanent electric we can hook onto and split up into paddocks. Well, there we go. The fence is finally at a point where we can call it pretty much done. A little bit for me to do still, but the bulk of it is done. 410 meters, I think, and it's just such a nice peace of mind to have this here. Electric fails, sheep break through and get over here, they can't go anywhere. And likewise, those who might have strayed off the footpath this side in the past, or brought their mini motos or whatever, well, I'm assuming that's the evidence I found, all those tyres and goggles that I found in the bushes, that's not going to happen either. A few things to finish off, let me show you those, and then I'll just discuss a few points on the fence itself. So choice of fence first, I went with Tornado High Tensile Lamb Safe, which is basically the same as your normal stock fencing, which is 800 millimeters high, but the rectangles, the spacing between them is a little bit wider. I think it's 22 centimeters rather than 15 or something like that. It basically means that sheep and lambs don't get their heads stuck in quite in the same way as they might when they're the square openings. It's kind of like the go-to option now. Most people tend to be using it from what I've heard and what I've seen. And then above that is the strand of barbed. The go-to around here, at least, is 2 strands of barbed wire above stock fencing, and then either plain or barbed at the bottom. Now that first one is just simply to both keep your stock fence off the ground, but also act as a string line to set your posts out, and you saw that in the first video. The barbed wire, I mean, I discussed this with Tom. He's always set it a hammer's head above the top of the stock fence. Most of the ones I've seen in person lately have been less than that. I mentioned earlier in the video that typically this barbed wire can be set lower, and I think that might be what I'll ask for in the future. I'm not sure 100% on the reasoning. I think it's something to do with cattle getting their nose under, but either way, for what we need, this is absolutely fine. And then I've gone for a similar spacing up to our plane. Now this plane is in the insulators. These are from Gallagher. They are called a W insulator. You simply put the wire down and through and it's locked in. There's another option which is the screw-ins, which we've used for polywire, or you can get really simple ones which is like a plastic tube which you just staple over to isolate it from the plastic. The plastic and the wood and the metal are all isolated. This is being strained and it probably could go a bit tighter, and we can do that in the future. Now let me explain the choice for the top. The top, instead of having two barbed, I've gone for the electric to be up there. A few reasons for that. Mainly cattle. If we've got cattle over here, then that's a deterrent for them. They're not going to be reaching over and things like that. And it's a little bit less brutal than barbed wire, because double barbed on top can be pretty bad for deer. But I would say the main reason for us at the moment is that this is our permanent supply. This is going to carry a supply from either the mains energizer or the solar energizer, a constant, 9,000-10,000 volts along it. From there, we can just clip on and run our smart fence or just polywire across the paddock, and we can just strip graze all the way down here and run it in manageable paddocks. And we can also isolate different areas. And I just like the idea that we've got a single supply coming along, and at any point we can just slide it along and tap onto that. We'll need to put signs. I've got, I think, half a dozen or 10 maybe signs to go along here. Anywhere where there's possible public access, which there shouldn't be here, but at either end, and a couple of points along here, just to say that there's an electrified fence. But to be quite honest, even if this isn't electrified, it's still a usable part of the fence anyway. Barbed wire down the bottom is more to do with the fact that we're going to have the pigs over here down the far end, and it just stops the digging under. It could have been a plain wire and probably would have been sufficient. Again, there's a lot of dips, hollows, bumps along here. Most of the dips we will fill. I'll just come along with a shovel and fill those. The main thing is that this stock fence is up off the ground. It kind of got 50 mil below, 50 mil above that bottom wire, so that there's not really any soil contact with any of the wire at the moment. But even if that kind of built up a little bit, it shouldn't ever touch the stock fence. Shouldn't really be too much to do maintenance wise, apart from these branches and stuff that we've cut back, which will slowly grow back. I'm not too worried about them down here at this level, and everything this side will be grazed, but we want to make sure any of the low hanging leaves, branches aren't going to interfere with our electric when it's in use. It should be easy enough, especially because we've left this kind of walkway all the way along on basically our side of the boundary, and that is where down the far end we're going to be looking at planting in some more trees and hedges. But down here it just means I've got access to come through just with the battery hedge trimmer even, and just zip off anything that's going to get in the way. And then posts, well, I thought I was going to get more controversial comments on the last video. We went with creosote posts. They're old school and only really used now in agriculture. I don't think you can use them in domestic settings. It's not the nicest stuff to work with, and it stinks. When we got them all delivered in the sun for a few weeks, they were stacked up there. But I think the benefit really outweighs it. These should last longer. There's all sorts of claims from tannalized treated timber that it will last X number of years in the ground. Down here, it's soft ground. Yesterday's heavy rain has already seen puddles. It's a high water table, it's flood meadows, there's water runoff. The other option was Clip-X, which is a steel post, which could have been the right option for us. But they are slightly more costly, and I just really didn't have too much knowledge in that area. I'm going to look at them potentially for another area of the farm, just as an experiment really, to see what they're like to work with. So we've gone with creosote posts, and they are also very slow growing. If you look at the growth rings on these, when I was in the yard comparing them, these look like a better timber to start with, regardless of what treatment they'd have. Yes, the creosote's pretty nasty, but if it's the difference from a sustainability point of view, if it's the difference between replacing all the posts in 10 years time or every few posts and having to put more in between them to strengthen the fence line, versus this that hopefully 20, 25 or more years, they should be, you know, a better option anyway. Those big gate posts and strainers, they should be there for a long, long time. There were a lot of railway sleepers in here as old fences, as old posts, and they must have been in 60 years, and they just only rotted off at ground level. They weren't too bad. So certainly the big posts, there should be no risk there. You saw me asking Tom earlier in the video about the strainers. That's the section at the end of each run, and in the middle in this case, because we've got 400 meters, that the whole fence is pulled from and strained. Conventionally, you might see a post with a diagonal, and that's what I've done in small bits of fencing in the past. The reason why some people move away from that and do what's called a box strainer, from what I gather at least, is one, it's quicker and a slightly more efficient way of doing it, and you're not digging all those holes to put in the T piece underground and then driving another post down the bottom. But over here it's soft, and if things are in the ground and that's what you're relying on purely, if that rots off, then I could just see it pulling over. Whereas if you've got a box strainer, this sort of H configuration, most of the strength is, from my basic physics, is above ground, I think. So there's less chance of it either pulling up in soft ground or kind of sinking in and rotting. And I think I prefer this option, but then again, I haven't really seen them side by side. And I know the rest of the farm is kind of done with a diagonal, or it's just big chunky posts and pulled against that. But nothing's really stayed where it should have. Then finally, another talking point which may or may not come up is the top of the posts. Tom cut them all. That was to make sure that they're all the same all the way along, rather than just following the dips and then your posts would go up and down. So they're always an even amount above our top wire. Yes, that opens up the wood, but most of the creosote had soaked in. There was no untreated wood showing. He then went along with creosote and soaked it into the top. I think that's something that I want to do. Maybe next year in the spring or something, come along and really, you know, give them a good coating again on the top, because we don't want too much getting in there. But like fence posting, gardens, like decking, like anything that you put in the ground, the main failure point is here. You know, up here it might just go soft a little bit or split, but never really do you have anything compromise and fail up there. It's always down at the neck of it just as it hits the ground. So I don't think that's an issue. And then as far as cutting an angle on it versus flat, I'm assuming it's just water runoff, but there might be two camps in the fencing world on that as well. So I've learnt loads on this fencing project. Not that I did too much on it, but working alongside Tom and seeing the different techniques might be that it's given me some ideas on what I would and wouldn't do next time round if I do any myself. I said to Tom from the outset that this fencing game is something I need to learn. You know, it's not like I'm going to get someone in to do every piece of fencing on the farm. This long, daunting stretch along here, I just really wanted someone to come in and do and just get done. So I now feel like I've got enough confidence and knowledge to have a go at it myself. Just replacing and repairing bits around the farm, putting in small runs up there. I think as soon as you've got a bulk amount to do, you need that big post knocker, either on the tractor or on a mini digger or something like that to get them in, because that's just a huge time saver. Anyway, I'm sure Tom will be back in a future video because we've got that top field to get done, and that one is needed for winter. I hope you enjoyed that little look at our first fencing project on the farm, and thanks to Tom and the boys for spending their time here and getting it done. Costs wise, I will go into probably in a future video. There's enough questions in the comments here, I'll do a Q&A. But we bought all the materials that were here, and then I paid Tom a per metre price to come in and just fit it all, and any consumables that he used along with it. Right, I need to go and make sure all the sheep are back over the other side because they followed me over, pick some potatoes, and then I'm done for the day. Thanks for watching. Remember, if you can, do it yourself, and we'll see you next time.